Welcome to this VOD review for the Link to the Past Randomizer Mentor Tournament. I'm robjbeasley. I'm joined today by Skele. How's it going?
Hello, doing good. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. Got a seed by Spaces today. We're going to walk through and critique, and also compliment at times, I'm sure.
Should be hopefully a very educational thing. Shout out to Spaces for volunteering for this, because it's can probably be a little stressful, having a bunch of people look at your gameplay, but I think it will be a really productive thing for everybody watching. So I think this is just a open mode seed. I think it is actually basic item placement, which is a little bit different than advanced item placement, but I don't think it's going to really make a difference in our comments here. So we've both had a chance to kind of look at the seed in advance.
All right, looks like we're going here. got one note already. Which is that usually you don't need to worry about doing Link's House as a one-off check. Like you can hit it at some point.
Yeah, sooner or later you're gonna save quit to Link's House anyway, so you might as well just wait until then. Or like if you really want to do Link's House before sync, you might as well just make it an uncle route instead, I think.
Yeah, that's completely fine too, for sure.
But either way, not really that big of a deal. I mean, it's just an extra save quit. It's just kind of unnecessary, I think.
Yeah, we have an early check of like prize packs and tree pools and stuff, which is definitely good practice. Definitely a good thing to get into the habit of.
Yeah, this is
have hearts everywhere.
Yeah, this is basically the kind of opener I go for, except for the Link's House part. Get the tier 1 check early, check the bush crab, hope you get some bombs.
Yeah, looking at Lumberjack is definitely like something some people do, some people don't, but it's obviously completely fine.
Yeah, definitely nice if it does turn out to be something important to have the information really quickly. You could set up a tier 2 or tier 3 pull in between doing that first one and going over here. It's a little bit tricky, but especially when you really want bombs, it can be nice to go out of your way to kill a couple extra things with bushes.
So typically you'd like scout the item at mushroom here before falling into the hole, and obviously there's a good thing here that you want to grab. And obviously the decision here now becomes interesting as to like we're going to see here as Spaces go into Kakariko with no resources, like 0 rupees and 0 bombs. Oftentimes what you'll do in this spot instead is save and quit from the woods to Link's House when you can do that check, and head to the Kakariko from the south where you can farm some bombs outside the grove.
Yeah, for sure. The tricky thing about CAC is that there's a lot of items here, but like both Blind Sut and Cackwell, they need a bomb each to finish them. So if there aren't bombs here, then he's going to have to come back and do it a second time just to get the one extra item. Now you might just get really lucky and there are bombs in one of these 4 chests. Like that's not that unlikely, but it's not something you really want to bet on. But yeah, I agree. Normally, by the time I finish Lost Woods, if I don't have any bombs, I'm going to save quit to Link's House, like you said. Take the south route to CAC, find bombs from bushes. That way you have at least one for the bombable hut in CAC, where you can farm some more bombs if you want. That's kind of a last resort if nothing else is really giving you anything to work with.
Yeah, as we see here, no bombs, unfortunately, in either Blind's house or the well. So got to come back to both for one more check in each.
Yeah, this is kind of a funny thing because having 115 rupees, that's not enough to do merchant and buy bombs from the store. So I probably would have skipped merchant there just to buy the bombs. But it's funny that they gave boots because that's pretty good too, as it turns out. But now we're at this point where Chicken Hut and the one item in Cackwell and the one item in Blind Side are all kind of orphaned. And you're going to have to come back for those on a separate trip. Which can really add up to a lot of extra time.
Yeah, the other thing you could have done here, actually, I guess this isn't like advice that comes up a lot, but in this specific seed, now once you found those boots, you could go farm the rock north of Kakariko for bombs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the Bonk Rocks next to the Fortune Teller's Hut will always drop one bomb. So you could backtrack up there, and if you want more than one bomb, you can actually walk in the Fortune Teller's Hut, walk back out to respawn the rocks, and then get a couple bombs that way.
Yeah, that's the thing that does come up a lot in boot start modes, for sure. Like you get out of escape, and if you don't have a bomb before CAC, you can just farm one or two there.
You can choose to look at what that item is before committing to getting it. As it turns out, the 20 rupees are pretty nice here because it does put him over the limit to be able to buy bombs, which he's going back to do now. So definitely a resource light seed. Pretty good example of why usually you just want to save quit after Lost Woods if you don't have bombs. And especially because of the money right there. Like if you did save quit to Link's house, get the bombs from south of Grove, come here, check Chicken Hut, you'd have 300 rupees. That would cover all your costs.
Yeah, so that should be a really nice seed to route south to north through Kakariko.
So we know we found a glove, we found the pearl so far. Boots, of course. Trying to remember if we saw any other important progressive items so far. I feel like there hasn't really been much.
We've got Cane of Samaria as well.
Okay. Yeah, that'll definitely be important down the road. So from here, there's not really anything else to do. I think you realize that now, but Blind's Hut is usually a pretty good place to save quit from if you finish a route there, because walking back out of the house takes a deceptively long amount of time. Stair transitions are actually really slow. And I like this choice to go to back of escape here. Usually my personal rule is like, as soon as you find the glove, the next time you save quit, just go do back of escape. But I do think it would have made sense to check Bonk Rocks before going here. I think optimally, what you would do would be to save quit from Blind's Hut to Sanctuary. That is still faster than walking out of Blind's Hut, then check Bonk Rocks, then check back of escape.
The dash lines like to to the dam there without sword are actually really awkward.
Yeah, boots without sword. Oh, speaking of sword. Boots without sword are a little bit frustrating. But yeah, following up the CAC play with Dam into either Gina or South Shore makes a lot of sense. That's, you know, pretty standard. This does kind of orphan a Gina, but like you kind of have to choose one direction or the other. There's not really a great way to not orphan a Gina. And that's a ridiculously good bomb mini Molder kit, by the way.
Yeah, the 3-bomb mini Moldon cave, just perfect.
Nice to finally find some bombs from chests.
Yeah, 16 of them all at once.
I think he was down to 3 by the time the Moldorms are dead, which is probably like the bare minimum that you would want going forward here. So having full bombs instead is just very nice.
Actually, the crabs kind of stayed away here. The crabs do 2 hearts of damage, so you need to be a bit careful if you're on low health coming to Ice Rock Cave.
So here he's going to show off the water walk technique. So the thing with this is, oh wow, he's so close to dying right there. You dash out of the cave while standing adjacent to the pit to arm the water walk, but what went wrong here was that he jumped off of a diagonal ledge. You need to jump off of a south-facing ledge to activate it. That said, you don't want to do it on this ledge, and you'll see why in a second.
Yeah, so you see the staircase that's just to the right on that screen. That's where you want to go down to and jump off there to set up the water wall. Now, if you have the flippers, you can just you can then jump off the diagonal slope, swim to this waterfall, and get the water walk from here as well.
It's actually really funny that you can like start a fake flipper from there. Like I never realized that before. Getting stuck on top of the waterfall, and like I mean, technically you could fake flipper back to the that little ladder thing.
Yeah, I guess it just puts you in a spot where you can just hit the transition at the same time as the
yeah.
You splash. So yeah.
So from here, like since the water walk didn't really work out, I would just kind of abandon this plan. But I could definitely understand like you wanted it to work, so you want to go back and fix it. But I think since you had to save quit anyway, you might as well just go do other things that are more in line with what the seed is telling you to do.
Yeah, I was trying to. Okay, there's the fake flipper there. So one thing you can do here, you can use a bomb to like put yourself on the screen transition. Like a bomb will never knock you onto a different screen, so it will always knock you perfectly up against the edge of the screen, which can help you set up faster sometimes. We are seeing the good knowledge here of knowing that you have the Moon Pearl, which means you can fake flipper into this cave, walk in and out, and you get put into Water Walk State.
Yep, and from here, some people like to go back in that whirlpool and then go to Hobo, finish the route there. He does have the money for Zora, so this is a perfectly good option too. Zora is technically in logic because we do have a glove.
Yeah, glove is good enough to get all the way to Zora here. Yeah, this is a problem, though. So you can actually just you actually haven't got to redash there. Like if you dash along the slope that put you into this part of the screen, you can just keep that dash going all the way across to Zora. Trying to readjust here has obviously been a problem.
Yep, that slope like lines you up perfectly. Like it looks like there's so many things that could screw up the run, but actually you don't have to worry about anything if you just dash against the slope and go all the way to Zora. Won't hit any rocks, won't hit any grass. So a little bit unfortunate, but I like the idea to go to Zora. At least if you're already at Waterfall Cave.
Right, we're going to see the front of Hyrule Castle here. This is obviously completely fine, especially when you've not done Uncle yet. There's just a lot of stuff over here.
Yeah, plus if you're thinking of this from like a racing perspective, you know, there's a lot of people that will do this like first. So if something really important is here, you don't really want to be too late to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Such as a hammer.
Yeah, I think in general with that hammer, I think I am probably most like competitive players would just bail and do the Dark World now, rather than going into the front of Hyrule Castle.
Yeah, that is Dark World access. Front of Escape is always pretty awkward to decide when to do in this mode, because it's pretty slow, but also like you're probably not going to be closer to it than you are right now, unless you find the mirror before you do Pyramid Ledge.
Yeah, it's certainly an easy check to like leave isolated. But...
Yeah. So I think you can play it either way reasonably, but yeah, definitely very tempting to just go do the Dark World once you have the access for it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, for sure it's not like definitely wrong to do this.
Especially like if you're not super comfortable on 4 Heart Green Mail, you don't really have good like safety weapons. Like I don't think we have a boomerang yet.
Yeah, that's true. We really haven't found anything in terms of like defense here. We've got 4 hearts, just like 1 shield, no mail.
So one kind of important lesson about doing the castle in open mode is you want to try to remember. Have you seen the map yet? Have you seen the small key yet? So we do already have the small key, and I mean the small key couldn't be in this chest anyway, but we haven't seen the map. So if this chest in here is not the map, then we can just skip Dark Cross completely because it has to be there. It can be kind of hard to keep track of that because usually you're doing Hyrule Castle in like multiple different segments. But like if you can skip Dark Cross, that's a lot of time you can save. And so here we can see not a map. So map has to be Dark Cross.
We get to learn another valuable lesson here. Try and remember if you've got a fairy in a bottle when trying to death warp.
Yeah, which is surprisingly really hard. I still do that all the time.
Oh yeah, we've for sure we've all done it.
It actually kind of bails him out because it convinces him to save quit, which was the correct move in the first place.
Finally get our map check here. Yeah.
One little trick I like to do with map checks, it might be different depending on what kind of tracker you use, but I like to just set everything to blue crystals on my map tracker. Because, you know, half the dungeons in the game are going to be blue crystals anyway, and then once you actually check the map, you can just tick off the ones that aren't blue crystals.
Yeah, I do that too, depending on the mode.
Yeah, if it's key sanity, you can't really do that, but for a mode like this, works pretty nice.
Well, it also actually has caught me out in inverted before as well, because I just completely forgot to do a light wall map when I got there, because there's only 3 things I looked on my tracker that looked like it was mostly populated with pendants and crystals.
Oh yeah, true.
So I don't do it at inverted either, but... yeah, so we're seeing a dark world play here, which makes a lot of sense with, we've only just got access, and now there's a ton of stuff we can do here. A little bit unfortunate to see a pendant thieves in this seed. It's like the one dungeon we can actually beat.
Yeah, the Dark World map check is always like such information overload. But if you can kind of like try to keep it in your head and just like update your tracker as you play, you can actually save a decent amount of time. That's something it just comes with experience, though.
Yeah, for sure. What I like to try and do is, like, before I do my Dark World map check, I make a mental note of which things I need, like what pendants and what red crystals I haven't found yet, and then just try and remember those dungeons when I look at the map.
Yeah, sometimes I like say it out loud to myself. Like I name like in order what the like pendants and the red crystals are. I don't know. For me, it just makes it easier to remember that before I actually update it. So we are skipping Skullwoods for now, which is kind of a contentious decision in modes like this. Because like you can't finish Skullwoods without Fire Rod. But also, when you're going in that Dark World portal, you're kind of right there already. So once you're done with like this village area, you're kind of in this difficult situation where like, do you want to keep going south to dig game, or do you want to go north to Skullwoods? Whereas if you start with Skullwoods, you can just kind of continue south and just sort of route the whole Dark World in one like continuous sweep. It's usually how I prefer to do it. And this is pretty scary with only 4 hearts, green mail.
Thieves Town just hit super hard. There's a little bit of a convoluted route through the front half of Thieves Town here. Trying to avoid these enemies at all costs.
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty disorienting part of the dungeon for sure. Even now, like if I'm playing Pot Sanity or something, like I cannot remember what all the different routes are through here. Like of course I've got the route to the chests, you know, ingrained in my brain, but then if you ask me to find anything else in these first 4 rooms, I'm like, I don't know where to go.
Alright, so there's only one item in the front of Thieves Town. So it's like he's gonna go ahead and head into the back here. Which is also fine. It's another thing that's like, there's a decision to be made on that, but I think it's defensible here when you've only found one item to carry on.
Yeah, one thing to note is we do have the cape and half magic, which can definitely make this a lot easier. Especially for this room. This room is kind of insane. So it's an easy item to forget that you have, but the cape honestly is amazing for situations like this. So following the death, we're still going back to the back. probably would have just cut my losses here and left, because this is a pendant anyway. And like you said, this is like doing the back at all is a decision to be made. So you could just leave this. Oh, so close to getting the fairy there.
Yeah, so I think we are going to see the Bale on this dungeon after the second death. Yeah, so I think here I would have just headed south rather than saving and quitting. I would have just gone to dig game and Stumpy, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with the decision to bail, but I wouldn't just like leave the Dark World completely here, because it takes a pretty long time to get to the Dark World. Especially if your plan is to do South Dark World next, which seems to be the case here. Like, you could just do this after Thieves and route it, you know, from west to east instead of from south to west. Or potentially you could have gone north after Thieves Down too if you skipped Skullwoods the first time. And then like save quit out of Skullwoods or something like that. Again, we have the cape, so bumper ledge is also a thing that we haven't looked at yet. So here we're actually seeing a Hype Cave 2 Pyramid, presumably a catfish play.
Yeah, this is actually something that can be kind of nice to do early in the Dark World, but like when you have the access with the hammer like this, because like oftentimes these two checks, Pyramid and Catfish, are checks that people can leave behind for a while. So if there's a good item there, you can definitely like get a leg up in a race.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to actually route those checks together with other checks. So doing it after Hype Cave is like about as convenient as it's ever going to get. One thing though is that Zora is kind of orphaned because of the Water Rock issue, and we still don't have Mirror. So you could potentially try to put off Catfish until it's time to do Zora, like together with the Mirror, and that's very unfortunate death right there.
Yeah, we're still on super low health this seed. Like, yeah, overworld deaths tend to be the most punishing. Obviously, dying in a dungeon, you just get spat out back at the start of the dungeon, which is annoying, but usually you can get back to where you were somewhat quickly. But yeah, dying on the overworld can actually just set you back quite a lot.
Especially when there was that fairy used in the accidental death warp. Like, that fairy actually would have been extremely helpful as a safety here.
Yeah, that's true. If you just save and quit straight away, then that fairy can stick around. Right, so we've seen the Dark Mountain climb here. So these, like for first look, these look like pretty competent dark rooms.
Yes, this is out of logic, obviously. I don't think it's necessarily a bad play. The thing is, like, if you assume that the lamp is going to be your mountain access, you're not really wasting any time by doing this because you unlock the save quit point.
Yeah, like it's only barely faster to do the room in the light than it is in the dark if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. And so the only downside is going to be if the flute turns out to be the mountain access anyway, and you could have just fluted to one instead of doing this. So it's a play that might not really hurt, but it also doesn't really accomplish that much here because you can only check Old Man and Spec Rock Cave. And you could also do Spike Cave here.
Yeah, that's true. We do have the full kit for Spike Cave, don't we? It's pretty early, but yeah, it is all here.
Yeah. And I like this choice to get this heart after things, you know, have been going kind of wrong here and there with some deaths. Like, it takes some time to get this, but if this saves you a death, it's still gonna save time.
Yeah, for sure. I don't fault players spending a bit of time to be safer. Like, yeah, it's exactly what you said. If it saves you a death, then you've gained time by doing that already.
So heading back to the Dark World portal over here. And this is kind of where that decision to just save quit after Thieves Town is coming back to bite him. Because you have to walk through a lot of screens to get to this portal, especially if you don't have mitts, you're doing it with the hammer and the glove. Like, it's a lot slower than you might think that it is. But if we had just done other stuff after Thieves Town instead of save quitting, you wouldn't have to make this second trip here.
Yeah, we've kind of been forced back here pretty quickly. The sea's starting to run a little bit dry. Like, there's the stuff around this area, and then there's Eastern Palace area, which hasn't been explored at all yet. And those are kind of the only, like, nice checks going right now.
We're gonna give Back Fuse another try here. I think I would just commit to last locating this area at this point after the deaths earlier. Especially like in a race setting. Like, you kind of want to hope that, you know, let's say something important is back here. You're probably in rough shape anyway because you died. So you're better off just assuming that this is not really what you need to do. Just go to like Skullwoods instead, or maybe Sahas.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate trying to put off Sahasrahla until you've got the ability to beat Pod and or Eastern while you're there. But yeah, I do think at this point I would have just bitten the bullet and done it rather than coming back into Pendant Thieves.
Yeah, I mean, there's just as many items in Sahas as there are in Pendant Thieves, right? And it's way faster to do Sahas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or again, if you're going to go to the West Dark World here, I think, because we still have Stumpy and Dig Game, as well as Bumper Ledge and Skullwoods. I think if this is like the part of the world you want to explore next, I would, again, kind of try to route it in a line. So starting with Skullwoods, then go south, finishing with Stumpy. Because again, once we're done with Thieves here, there's going to be stuff to the north and there's going to be stuff to the south. And it's going to be kind of an awkward choice to make, like which way you want to go.
Yeah, if you want to full clear it, you're going to have to like double back on yourself again. Actually worked out kind of nicely with getting hit there. You don't want to get hit before you've picked up the rock, but once you've picked up the rock, then getting hit can actually be quite good because you throw it faster.
Finally getting some health. Yeah, at least there's that. But between the lack of bombs in the opening and the lack of health and males and stuff, this has been kind of an unforgiving start to a seed.
And it's like the first 3 hits on blind there were on script. Then we fell off here. We definitely recommend to newer players to try to learn the blind script. Like, it's not easy and you won't get it every time, but like the further into the fight you can get on script, the easier it'll be.
Another fight where the cape is super good if you're not comfortable with the script.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I almost always walk into the blind fight with the cape like on my Y button, ready if I need it anyway. Even though I'm, hopefully I don't fall off the script, but if I do, then there's just you've got that backup ready.
Yeah, like there's no reason not to be ready for that. And one other little trick, like in this case, he has half magic. He's got all the magic you would ever need. But in case you do have the cape and you don't have very much magic, you can take advantage of the fact that if you're holding onto a wall while caping, you won't lose any magic. And since blind kind of hugs the top part of the screen for most of the fight, if you're relying on the cape there, just grab the wall and wait for the transition between phases that way. You don't really need much magic at all, and you can stay invincible for pretty much the whole fight.
Alright, so dropping down into Skullwoods here, we are running the risk of not finding a small key and getting locked in.
Yep, and this is something if you play different versions of the randomizer, you might not be familiar with the fact that that's possible. Like I think in SMZ3, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the guaranteed key is in Pinball Chest, but in this version of the randomizer, it's not.
Yeah,
So,
I think you're right about that.
So, like you said, there is totally a chance that these 3 chests have 0 small keys, and then you have no choice but to save quit if this is how you route it. Like it's a fairly small chance of being punished, but it's a risk you don't really have to take at all.
Anyway, in this case, yeah, we've got a key. We found one of the 2 items in Skull. I actually did not know you could go on the right side of that pit until I watched the see through the first time. That is actually news to me.
Yeah, it's actually pretty handy, especially like in entrance modes. Otherwise, it's not too common to really be walking to that chest from that direction anyway. So now I believe we found the map and the compass, which you can kind of use as a shorthand to know that Mothula has to have either the other item or he has the big key and then the other items in the big chest. Now the decision to save quit right there is a little bit questionable because now Bumper Ledge is extremely orphaned.
Yeah, I don't know if this factored into the decision there, but it is worth pointing out the Bumper Ledge isn't in logic yet in basic placement. It requires the hook shot.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that.
Like I would say probably still do it in that spot anyway, but it is a thing to note.
No need to really talk to Sahas here since, you already know where the green pendant is. Speaking of hookshot.
Yeah, now Bumper's in logic. Yeah, I like the decision to leave here rather than going into Eastern after finding that hook shot. It's just like more dense checks on the mountain, and we can try and put off East until we have a bow.
Yeah, I agree. The only weird thing is that, like, this is still out of logic, but like you said, the density is just so overwhelmingly better. Like, what if the lamp is just an Eastern, and logically you're supposed to get that lamp and then come here? You'll save a ton of time if you just put off Eastern until you have the bow. Or something like that. There really are no other options right now that are very appealing. So far we just found a mushroom and a sword. Another sword. Close with the spin setup there. I find with that bomb jump in particular, you don't really need to be very close to the bottom ledge at all. It's really more about getting the spin directly on the left edge.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how close it is, but yeah, there are definitely multiple pixels that work. Like, you haven't got to be right at the bottom for sure.
Nicely done on the second try. So here, you definitely want to look at the island. Like, you're not even close to being able to do the island yet, but it's right there. You might as well look at it. Also, doing Spiral Cave before Hera is kind of a choice. I mean, if your intention was just to skip Hera, which is defensible enough, I think, then that's fine. But if you're going to do Hera, you should do Hera before doing Spiral, because now you're going to have to climb up the mountain again.
Yeah, I guess I actually can't remember what he does here, but the reason to do it this way around would be if you wanted to do Spike Cave immediately after Hera, right? So you'd have to hop down and then you're down the mountain again. But I can't remember if that's what happens or not.
Yeah, that's true. That's another good way to do it. There's not a very good way to do both Spike and Spiral in situations like this.
No. All right, so here is our flute up the mountain. So yeah, this is actually interesting implications logically, because that means that now lamp must be our access, and it must be down there somewhere.
Yeah, so like we were saying before with the choice to do Old Man in the Dark earlier, like that really did not cost much time at all to do that, because you were going to have to walk through the mountain that way anyway, eventually. That flute is definitely a very good find. It doesn't open up anything logically. I mean, even if it was in logic, which it's not. But it will just speed up everything else in the seed. It's the sort of thing you want to find out of logic, if you can.
Right, nice Hera pop setup.
And so I think here the intention was to hit that floor tile thing, then everything else got in the way. So he does have the boots and the hook shot. If that's the case, you can kind of just drop down that first hole close to the chest, and instead of hitting that floor tile in the first place, you can just hook shot to the big chest and then bonk back across. That way you don't have to deal with any of the enemies up here and going out of your way to hit that little tile.
Okay, good mold on fight 2. Unfortunately, there's an item in the basement, and we haven't got a fire source right now.
Yeah, especially because we found that flute, we know that we were supposed to have a fire source to get here in the first place. So at this point, you're really hoping that nothing's in the basement. Because again, like if this is a racing scenario, imagine your opponent actually found the lamp when they were supposed to, and they had it when they got here. No, good call remembering that you need the lamp there, or the fire rod to actually do the basement. But again, that would have been a really good choice, or a really good time to do Spike Cave before leaving. So I think one of the takeaways with this seed is before you save quit, just make sure that there's nothing else around you that you can do. Especially with locations like Spike Cave that are kind of hard to route in. Like, if you can find any excuse to do Spike Cave conveniently, I feel like you should do it. You'll thank yourself later. It looks like we're gonna do a mushroom check here. And we did find that mushroom on the mountain, so we know that that is lamp locked. Oh, and actually, forgot to mention this. I think you could maybe do Magic Bat after turning on the flute back there. It's kind of a isolated thing. Decent excuse to do that. Especially if you don't think you're going to find the mirror soon, or the mitts soon.
Sure, without either mitts or mirror, it's going to be pretty hard to route that in with like the smith chain and stuff anytime soon. So this is actually an interesting decision here. I think we saw that decision being made in real time with like the wavering there as to whether you go into pod or eastern here. I think my advice in this spot would just be go into pod if you're comfortable with the dark rooms and don't otherwise. Like this is obviously the dream here is that you find the mirror in pod and you get to route the two dungeons together really, really easily. But yeah, it just depends on your comfort level with the dark rooms in pod.
Yep, for sure. Doing one of these two dungeons is definitely the move now, since they are crystals that you can fully clear, assuming you can do the dark rooms and stuff. But yeah, like you said, it's totally valid to do either before the other. So that bow, we found the bow from Mushroom. Mushroom was on the mountain. which is all out of logic, but that is a perfect example of the kind of thing he was hoping to find by doing that out of logic mountain sequence. So going back to that decision to bail after getting hookshot from Sahas, we can see how that really paid out. Because, again, we don't know where the lamp is. Maybe lamp is in Eastern or something. Well, by doing those out-of-logic high-density checks, now we can single-dip pod and Eastern, save a lot of time.
Yeah, so generally when you get another small key from the bridge chest, I think most players would go straight to vanilla big key chest before dropping down here.
Yeah, if something that's not a small key turns out to be in that chest, that's going to be kind of annoying to get back to. Especially if you don't have the mirror, because then you're going to have to walk through a lot of extra screens. Also, tip for that room, if you have boots and a sword, if you move left immediately after you go out the door until you're like roughly halfway between the two leftmost conveyor belts, maybe a little bit further left, and then just dash up, you'll dodge all the spikes. Makes that room a lot easier. You might get bad jelly RNG, but most of the time it'll be fine. I believe at this point we've seen 4 small keys, which is a little bit unfortunate, because if we had only seen 3 small keys, we would know that this big key chest here would have to be a small key and that we could skip it. But since we've found 4 small keys, it could really be anything. So you really have to go back for it, especially if you don't have the big key yet. Could be the big key here.
Yeah, so I guess we can talk a little bit about pod key logic there. Yeah, there have to be at least 4 small keys in the 6 checks in the front of the dungeon. Just for everything to work out so that you can open all the doors. So yeah, if you do those other 5 checks and see only 3 keys, you know that chest is just a small key locked small key, so you can just ignore it.
Yep, and like you were saying earlier, if he had just dropped down to that left chest the first time after getting the bridge key, he would have just been able to go straight to the back after doing the mimic side. Save a lot of time versus having to jump back into Stalfo's basement for the second time, going through all those extra screen transitions. And also, this is a bit of a roundabout way to get to the back. If you just take that right bridge instead of the left bridge, you don't have to go through this whole beetle arena stuff. You can hit that crystal switch from the right side with the bow or some other projectile, which is a lot simpler than going through the arena. Good use of the fire rod here. For those who aren't familiar with doing dark rooms like this, for this one, all you have to do is just hold left or hold right, depending on which staircase you go down, and just shoot the fire rod. You'll light up a torch very easily.
Yeah, and we found all 6 small keys now, so harmless hellway here must be checked as well. I guess in this case, it was the big key. But yeah, if you've done all the checks up to this point and have only found 5 small keys, then you can write off harmless hellway as well. It's another check that can just be a key locked key.
So this pod item layout with the equipment that he has is kind of awkward because, well, first of all, you have to do this in the dark, which is pretty difficult. But also, once you get to the big chest, like, what do? You don't have the mirror. So you are gonna have to death warp or walk all the way back out, and both of those are quite difficult without the lamp. So one way you could do this instead, since he found the big key before going to Dark Maze in the first place, you could go for the Hammer Jump, check Big Chest first, and then do Dark Maze backwards and pop out the top. And then from there you could run towards the boss, and you wouldn't have to worry about doing death warps or anything like that. Now that's a fairly advanced trick, I'd say. I mean, knowing how to Hammer Jump and also being able to do this backwards. But this is a situation where that would make the routing a lot more convenient, I think. That was a very good forward darkroom navigation, though. This is pretty difficult. I'd say one of the most difficult darkrooms to learn that actually comes up frequently in races.
And chat talking about having mapped as well. You're perfectly entitled during a race to have a map of the dark rooms open if it helps you navigate. I would recommend it.
Yep, you can even Google stuff in races, like tricks. I've done that before. There's nothing wrong with that. But so here we're seeing, like I was saying, a very awkward situation to be in, because you're actually trying to die, but you don't know where the things are that can kill you, and I think he's already killed a few of them. Potentially an accident.
Oh, here we go.
So there we go. So again, if you hammer jumped into the big chest in the first place and just done the whole room backwards, it would have worked out a little bit better. But like I said, that's pretty advanced. So, can't fault anybody for struggling here.
Yeah, for sure. Like the hammer jump itself is a pretty tricky trick to pull off. I know some people do find it easier to navigate the dark room in reverse, though. I think that's just a personal preference thing, though.
Yeah, it's one of those things where eventually you'll just know how to do it both ways with muscle memory. Like, if you asked me to draw a map of the Dark Maze, off the top of my head, I would have no idea what it looks like, but I can at least remember, like, what buttons I have to push. And that's just something that'll come with playing more and more. And speaking of dark rooms, these upcoming ones can be difficult, but with the fire rod, they can be much more manageable. Specifically the turtle room, which is coming up shortly. Killing all 6 of the turtles in the dark is very difficult, I would say. But with the fire rod, there are torches in the room that you can light up, so unfortunately, he just used up all of his magic. So that's going to make this much more difficult than it needed to be.
Yeah, like Dark Turtle Party there is actually one of the hardest dark rooms. If you can't light a torch, if you can light a torch, the room becomes fine.
Yep. So glad he remembered he had the cape, since we've had some issues earlier in the run where I forgot he had the cape and it would have saved him. But unfortunately, in that situation, it kind of ruined him because he ran out of magic.
Yeah,
And
I think if you'd been able to unequip the cape just before going through the door, even I think that would have been enough magic for a fire rod shot.
yeah. If you're worried about that one turtle in that room before the 6 turtle room, what I like to do is I just hold out my sword to the left and then keep walking left, and eventually you'll clink into it. And as soon as that happens, just use the hammer and you'll flip it over. And then once it's flipped over, you can just keep walking. Like, you don't need to kill it. It's not going to hurt you if it's flipped over. So if you're worried about taking damage there, that's something you can do just to get through that really easily. And I'm pretty sure there is no magic in this dungeon, like in any pots or anything. Or if there is magic, I don't know where it is. So if you run out of magic in this situation, there's really nothing you can do about it, but either leave or just try to do it fully in the dark, which is very difficult. Also, people in chat mentioning prize pack knowledge is also very useful. Because some of the enemies in this dungeon actually would drop magic for you. That's something that can be a little bit difficult to pay attention to, and learning what the different prize packs are in the first place is kind of a task. But if you happen to notice what is dropping, like 8 packs of bombs and full magic and fairies and things like that, that can be really helpful to remember. So we're seeing here just how difficult this room is if you can't see anything.
And then we'll see the abandoned ship on this as well. Come back with better equipment later.
Yeah, what else can you really do at this point? Doing that room fully in the dark is not something I really would recommend anyone even bother trying to learn for a while. Definitely learn how to do it with the fire rod because it's quite easy. But like it's difficult with nothing.
Oh yeah, you can fail that room at a pretty high level for sure. One of the key reasons why last year I was the runner-up in the Casual Boots tournament and not the winner of the Casual Boots tournament is because I failed that room.
Oh no. If you have tempered, like maybe you can get away with doing the NMG strat, like blindfolded, but I mean that's also quite difficult. And then sometimes you'll have situations where like you don't even have tempered, like you're on fighter sword or something, and then you know it's just a nightmare to do that with no fire rod or no lamp.
Yeah, another thing you can do if you haven't got a fire rod but do have some magic is you can make use of some of the medallions. I think I believe Quake flips the turtles over and the other two damage them when they're flipped. Someone can correct me if I'm slightly off on that.
I didn't know about the Quake thing, but yeah, I know the other two definitely kill them. A perfectly good choice to go to Eastern next. It's another crystal we can full clear. Gonna have to do more dark rooms, but they're a lot easier than the pod dark rooms are.
Yeah,
I would
so
say. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, if you know the pod dark rooms well enough to even attempt them, then yeah, I wouldn't expect to have any trouble with the Eastern dark rooms.
Yeah, I think if you're a newer player and you're trying to like you're learning new tech, I would put Eastern dark rooms as one of the very first things you should learn because this comes up so often.
Yeah, for sure. Like the number of seats where you just get a bow early and knowing that being confident to just go and full clear Eastern with that bow is really nice.
Yep. Or like if let's say your progression is like a hammer in one of the earlier chests in Eastern, like you don't even have a bow yet, you can at least do this dark room here. To get big key chests. It's pretty easy. It's gonna come up very, very often. This might be the most common dark room in the game besides Old Man to do, like actually in the dark.
worth noting probably that the 2 pots in that big key chest room do have hearts under them if you need a refill in that spot. Although we're gonna see an alternative option for a refill here as well, which is the fairy drop down here.
Yeah, if you're not confident with this dark room, it's very good to remember this. I will say this is a situation where the fire rod, again, would make this much easier. I think he has enough for a fire rod shot.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, because we had no magic coming in. We must have found like 1 pickup, which is enough for a shot.
Right, yeah. So if you have the fire rod for this room, all you have to do is hold left or right as you're entering the door. That way you'll exit the door hugging the bottom wall, and then just shoot the fire rod left or right, and you'll hit a torch. I think what was going on here is he was having some issues picking up the pot that is blocking the little hallway in the top left of that room there.
Yeah.
Very common for people to have issues with that, because if you are hugging the top wall, which you are likely to be doing if you're doing it in the dark, you actually cannot pick up that pot. You need to be like 1 pixel lower than the top wall, or it's not going to work.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Angry Pants in chat there for fact-checking me on how medallions interact with turtles. I knew Quake did something that wasn't damaging them, but apparently it stuns them when they're flipped. It doesn't actually flip them.
Good job remembering the arrow pickups under the pots in that room. It's always good to top off before you do the Armos fight here.
Yeah, for sure. Especially without silvers, like even if the fight goes perfectly, you're using 18 arrows doing this fight.
Yeah, there have been so many times where like I'm just like, I don't need more arrows. I've got 20. 20 is enough. And then it turns out later in the seed I have no arrows, and I'm like, oh crap, I wish I just picked up some arrows before Armos. So I don't think we found anything very noteworthy in that dungeon, but it was crystal, so that's progress. I think maybe a little bit of debating where to go next here. We're just walking to Sahas out of habit. And so this is a plate of Zora, which is not the best option right now, I think. There aren't very many good options, to be clear. But I would still recommend doing either like Stumpy and Dig Game or Skullwoods Bumper Ledge at this point. Because at least in those cases, you're pairing together multiple checks. This is just something that's like super isolated, and maybe you could still pair it with Catfish later.
Yeah, I think this is another one of those situations where in a race you're almost feeling like you're writing off this check at this point, because your opponent probably got to it a long time ago. If there's an important item here, you're probably way behind anyway.
For sure. Classic Zora item, the green rupee.
And yeah, of course we picked up the fire rod in pod, so Skullwoods is now full clearable. So yeah, definitely seems like a good place to be going. Oh, I missed the bird. Stupid boulders.
I hate this screen so much. So we're doing a magic bat check first. Again, I think I would do Skullwoods first. I guess by fluting to 3, you're kind of in the area anyway, but I don't know if it really is convenient to do this if your plan is to go to Skullwoods next, because
Yeah,
you kind of have to walk the other direction.
Yeah, like honestly, I don't even know if it's faster to now walk to Skullwoods from here, or if it's faster to just flute again.
Yeah, if it is, it's like a second, right? So
yeah, it must be really marginal.
So I mentioned this earlier. I'll bring it up again. I think this is something that a lot of players, like at the beginner level and into the intermediate level, don't really pay attention to. But that's Skullwood's key logic, which basically is just, can you deduce that there is an item on Mothula or not? So earlier we did already find the map and the compass. So that basically guarantees that Mothula has to have an item, or Mothula has the item, or sorry, Mothula has the big key, and then the item is in the big chest. The reason for that being, Mothula logically requires all three small keys.
Yeah, Skullwoods is an interesting dungeon in that regard, because obviously you don't actually need to find any of the shuffled small keys in order to beat the dungeon, but logically it requires all of them.
Yeah, it's something that like a lot of people don't think of it at all because of that. But in this situation, I'm spoiling things a little bit here, but if Mothula does have the big key, we know that that item has to be in the big chest, and so there's no reason to check the bridge chest in this situation, because you know a small key has to be in the bridge chest. So every now and then that is useful key logic to keep in mind, especially if you don't have the mirror, because, well, once you check bridge chest, what do? You walk all the way back out to the front, you death warp. Depends how much life you have. Either way, it's kind of slow. And then here we see a classic mistake. Because the game is programmed kind of weird, Mothula literally takes no damage from tempered sword spins. Like 0. Always 0.
So I thought that was actually a thing that got changed in Rando. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Just because if you get here with gold sword, the fight would be horrific if it took no damage from your slashes, but I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
So I'm pretty sure technically what it does when you have the gold sword is the game like treats it as if you had the tempered sword. So gold slashes will still do tempered damage, but tempered spins and gold spins will still do 0 damage.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I could definitely believe that that's the case.
So yeah, gold sword does work. If you're playing vanilla, gold sword doesn't do anything. Well, at least gold slashes don't do anything. But that is patched out in Rando.
Yeah, you'd have to use pokes if you got there with the gold sword otherwise. And yeah, as you were saying, this I believe this is a deducible small key in this chest. Which is definitely another thing that I frequently forget too.
So the other thing in the neighborhood around here that we still haven't done is Bumper Ledge. I think you probably want to check Bumper Ledge before going to Skullwoods, because then if that second item is just on Mothula, you save quit from the back of Skullwoods, you don't have to walk back through. Though in this situation, you know, you do kind of have to walk back to front to get big chests anyway. And from there, it's not too long to walk to bumper ledge and save quit from there instead. So I think you could play it in both ways. I feel like doing bumper ledge first is probably better, but I think both make sense. And either will be better depending on item placement.
Yeah, there is that other item. Another nice little spin bomb jet set up there.
And here at this point, I think he's just straight up forgetting about bumper ledge, which it is an easily forgettable location, to be fair.
Yeah, and now we're seeing the long left behind the game and Stumpy checks. It's pretty unfortunate to leave these checks behind this long and still not have Mirror to do K45 at the same time.
Yeah, no kidding. This all kind of goes back to like the initial choice of how to route the Dark World. Like we've seen a lot of back and forth between this half of the map, really. But again, when we first entered the Dark World, we already had the cape. We didn't have the fire rod, so we wouldn't have been able to finish Skullwoods. But if you just start the route at Skullwoods, loop down and around, like to Hype Cave, maybe even going all the way to Catfish, in the long run, that just would have saved a lot of time in the seed. And you would have had the lamp, which would have made things a lot easier.
That would save a lot more time.
So that finally puts things in logic. Flutes in logic. That bow is in logic. And here we're going back to pod, and truthfully, I don't know for a fact if it's faster to save quit and flute to 5. I think it probably is, but I don't actually know.
Yeah, me neither.
But at this point, like, pod is never going to get better. Like, there's nothing left over here to try to procrastinate it for. You have the lamp now, so everything is really easy to execute. So it makes perfect sense to just go do this now. I think Helmasaur has an item.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. We've seen Map and Compass. Helmasaur can obviously never have a key of any sort. It is always Map, Compass, or an item.
We have been seeing throughout the run a lot of extra menuing. As you play more, you'll eventually start thinking about things like multiple steps ahead. You'll start to think of like, what item am I going to need to use next, so that instead of pausing the game at all, you can just quick swap to what you need. But even in situations where you forgot to quick swap to what you want, I think it's usually just going to be faster to stand there and quick swap to it, depending on how quick you are with menuing. Sometimes it's going to be faster just to stand there and mash the L and R button. And that has to be a very satisfying bit of revenge on the turtles after their earlier fiasco. good choice to hold out the sword while hammering. For those who don't know, that does extend the hammer hitbox a little bit, so it makes it easier to hit the mask.
The hammer has some pretty weird hitboxes otherwise, especially when facing upwards.
And you can also arm a spin speed to get the same effect if you want. Well, that's a little bit more technical. Alright, so where are we going next?
Yeah,
Oh, Dark Cross.
Yeah, that
Okay.
might have been a bit of thinking about did I find the map in Escape or not. And the answer is unfortunately yes. Oh, sorry, no, rather. The map is waiting for us in Darkgrass, but yeah, obviously better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. I guess the lamp does put that in logic in basic item placement. Although I think the fire rod was lamp locked anyway, so even in advanced placement, this would be strictly lamp locked.
The fire rod was in vanilla big key chest in part, which is locked behind all the keys. So yeah, I guess it was technically lamp locked, even though you could have gotten it without ever visiting that room.
Yeah. Pod key logic is very fun. I think at this point he might have just forgotten about Bumper Ledge completely. Oh, Agina. Yeah, we still haven't done Agina. And this, just in general, is a very annoying check because it's Sphere 1, but also, like, when do you do it? Like, I've definitely lost big races because I don't do this check until, like, an hour into the game. So, there's not really a good answer on when you should do this, I guess. Like, if you compare it in with Desert or with Mire with the mirror, that's great, but that's not going to happen too often before you need to go there.
Yeah, at least once you've gotten the flute, you can just like peek at Desert Ledge and then grab it as well, and it's not that slow.
I think it probably at this point he's just racking his brain like, what should I do next? But the save quit out of Agina wasn't really necessary because you have the flute. You can just walk out and flute to where you want to go instead.
Yeah, if where you want to go is the mountain, it might actually just be faster to save and quit to the old man, though I don't know that either for sure.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it probably is. So it looks like we're going back for Hair Basement at this point. I mean, frankly, all the options at this point are pretty bad. So it's kind of a crapshoot. But I think I would make this my true last location at this point because remember we couldn't do Hair Basement early because we had no fire source, and logically we're supposed to have the lamp. Turned out the lamp was just on Stumpy, which is something that most people probably would get on like their first Dark World trip or very early on in the game. So like if this was a race, you can definitely see a lot of situations where like your opponent just did this the first time they went to the mountain because they already had the lamp. And so if the important item is here, like you're probably just going to lose anyway. So you might as well just make your last location, hope that nothing's here. Also, since we don't have the mirror, and presumably you want to do Spike Cave after this, so you would like to leave the dungeon without safe quitting. You should try to hurt yourself in the tile room down to 1 heart, so you can just death ward from here.
Yeah, walking back out of these rooms just feels awful all the time.
It's also surprisingly hard to remember how to, or like what what configuration the switches need to be in. At least I have trouble with that. But actually, good memory, knowing that that switch is off screen in that position right there, so you can hit it. All right, so I think we're down to there's catfish and there's bumper ledge. I'm not sure if there's anything else.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head either.
So pretty close to the last location situation here. And you know, that's going to happen. But that's kind of why you want to make sure just throughout the whole run, you're staying efficient, because if you're going to last location something, you want to do it, you know, as efficiently as you possibly can. And in a lot of cases, that's actually going to be how you win a race. You don't necessarily win races by, you know, finding all the items first because you got lucky or whatever. It's because you just routed it better from the beginning. Put you in a better situation when you do get to a point like this. They're finally getting the bumper ledge check. And progress.
Yep, kind of unfortunate. Mit's left behind there for so long. We see the hookless trap there, even though logically the hookshot is required in this item placement.
Getting kind of wrecked by the Birderdactyls, but honestly, at this point, like, well, I guess you could go to Smith Chain from here, but like just a safe quit from here is not bad anyway. So mids do open up quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, most notably, 3 more dungeons we can get to. I guess without Flippers, Ice isn't in Logic, and we're missing the Ice Rod to beat Turtle Rock, but Maya is in Logic and beatable right now.
It is. It's also a pendant, though.
Oh, right, it's the last pendant.
Yeah, that's the green pendant.
Yeah, this really does have a gross layout here.
So for Go mode, we still need the Ice Rod for Trinex. I think we have Bombos and Ether, but not Quake. We don't know what medallion is required for Turtle Rock. I don't think we have Flippers yet.
No, we use Flippers and Mirror for Swamp as well. Yeah, so we're still 3 from go.
Yeah, so fake flippering into Ice Palace is something to consider here for sure. The downside is if it turns out that flippers are go mode anyway, you might end up doing checks in Ice Palace that would never end up being in logic until you're in go mode. But like, it's totally possible that the mirror is in Ice Palace, the Ice Rod is in Ice Palace. So I think it would be the best play at this point. That or the other big candidate here, I think, would just be to do Dark Death Mountain. Hookshot Cave plus Super Bunny Cave. That's 6 items. You can maybe dip Turtle Rock, which is a whole nother conversation. But I mean, the 6 items by themselves are still pretty efficient. Whereas here we're seeing Mirrorless Smith Chain, which honestly is one of the like slowest things you could be doing right now. There's also Meyer Shed available now with the Flute in the Midst. If Meyer requires Bombos or Ether, that is available as well. It is the Green Pendant, so Green Pendant, you know, that's another check at Sahas, and that also would give us Ped. So it's kind of like Meyer's 4 items instead of 2. I guess like the dream in this situation is that the mirror is actually on Smiths. Or at least something required, because, you know, if no progressive item is found by doing these pretty slow checks, then, I mean, you're losing time to the other person, even if they did Smith Chain, but with the mirror later. You know, let alone if they just skip Smith Chain completely. I believe if you're doing mirrorless purple chest, including a 7 is going to be a little bit faster than save quitting to Link's house. I mean, you can save quit to Link's house either way, but should flute to 7 after that. And let's see where we're going next.
Yeah, so here's my area. Obviously, like peek at the Banalion and do the shed. In this case, it's Bombos, so we can get in.
It is fully clearable.
Yeah, honestly, like I think like all 3 of the kind of remaining like midst-locked dungeon areas are all defensible here. Like Ice is the only crystal we can full clear, but it's not in logic. Maya is the only dungeon in logic that we can full clear, and Turtle Rock is like, or like the Dark Death Mountain area with a possible Turtle Rock dip is the densest area. So I think they're all kind of acceptable.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's an argument for each of them. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the magic to use Bombos here. If you recall, he did get a blue potion from Purple Chest, so if he really wanted to, he could use that. But instead, he's going to flute to 2 to buy green potions for more magic, to refill the magic, and then he's going to go back to Mire after that. So this is one of those things that will come with more experience, but this is kind of the second time now we've seen him forget what was in the bottles. First time being the Death Warp with the Fairy.
Yeah, I think in general though, I definitely don't mind taking a little trip to buy potions if you think it'll like help you out later in the seed. It's definitely good safety if you're still thinking you might end up dying in opportune time. Then having potions is always good.
Oh, for sure. And like we were saying earlier, like if it's something that saves you a death, then it's still saving you time, right? But in this case, like if the goal was just to get into Mire, I think probably should just use the blue potion here. Or just leave. Like if you don't want to drink the potion, just leave, do something else instead. So Pendant Mire is one of the least efficient dungeons in the game, I'd say. That said, like we were saying earlier, it is green pendant, and we do already have the other 2 pendants, so it's a little bit better than just a typical Pendant Mire. Pendant Mire plus you get Ped and you get Sahas after it, so it's a little bit better. And maybe if you're not feeling good about how things have been going and you just want to like put all your eggs in the Ped basket, like that's a perfectly legitimate strategy. Like you already did Back of Thieves. Back of Thieves didn't have anything, so you got a pendant from that. You killed Moldorm. The flute was in Hera, which is good, but I mean killing Moldorm is still kind of unnecessary. I think most people would kill Moldorm, but at this point, like if you're feeling behind, I think this is a fine play. But if you're just trying to like get the highest expected, or I guess let's say the fastest expected time to finish the seed from this point, I don't think Mire is the best play here. I would rather go to Darkened Fountain personally, or Ice Palace. I like the choice to skip cutscene for now. You can play it either way. Now that Quake is kind of funny because we don't know if we need that or not, because we haven't seen the Turtle Rock medallion yet.
Yeah, we do now know that we can get in for Turtle Rock for sure. That's the full set of medallions, so I mean that is still slightly awkward because of course there's you still know Ice Rod, so it now means that if you go up the mountain, you know, now that you know for a fact you can get in, it could be a little awkward. You might not want to make the dip, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I think Ice Palace, out of logic, makes a lot of sense in this situation, because what if that Ice Rod is there? Like, you know, maybe Flipper's Arco mode, maybe you do a little bit of extra checks in Ice Palace in the end. But like, Go mode Ice Palace is really not that much faster than full clearing it if you're doing the Icebreaker route. So I think I'd be inclined just to do Ice Palace, see if something good is there. If I spend a little bit more time there than I needed to, then it is what it is. I'd rather have that, you know, that loose end tied up before committing to something like Turtle Rock, or having to make the choice to do Turtle Rock. But that Quake was the second item in this dungeon and does already have the big key. So, you know, always make sure you're counting your items. Because we've seen the map chest, the big chest, cutscene now. All of these are not required at all. So as soon as he found that quake, he should have either just gone straight to the boss by taking the left route through the teleporter way, or I think you could just see that quake and be like, I hope this is the Turtle Rock medallion and leave. I think that would also be a valid play. But either way, you don't want to be opening these extra checks that only have keys, maps, and compasses and stuff. So truthfully, at this point, I think he just doesn't remember how many items he has. He probably thinks there has to be one on Vidi. But even if there wasn't, again, this is the green pendant, and we have the other 2 pendants, so killing Vidi does unlock 2 extra checks.
Yeah, I think honestly, if I was in this spot in a race, I would finish the dungeon. Gambling on green pendant or pedestal paying off for me, so I think you would feel behind. You're doing a lot of extra checks.
Yeah, like if that ice rod or the mirror is just on Ped or Sahas, like that will pay off huge for you if you do this early. Maybe you will get away with not doing an ice rodless dip of Turtle Rock, for example.
We get to see a nice, easy, vitreous fight here with Cape and Gold Sword.
Yeah, so that's pendant number 3. I believe the only things left in Logic are Dark Death Mountain and Turtle Rock. Well, and the 2 items we've been talking about that the green pendant unlocks. So going to Sahas here. This is another thing where, truthfully, I don't know if this is faster than fluting to 5 from Link's House.
Yeah, me neither, actually.
So it's always fun that things like this come up. Like, I know we both played this game a lot, but like, there's always situations like this where you just don't actually know which route is faster. I mean, I'm sure they're both pretty close, but
yeah, and that's just like one of the things about Rando is that there's just like. Unlike a sort of vanilla speedrun, there's just so many different things that can come up that you can't just like practice and time absolutely every possible piece of movement between 2 locations.
So now he's going to the mountain. I don't like doing this before just blind pulling Ped. Because Ped is like half of the reason you even go kill Vidi, right? And Sahas was garbage.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of the time, like when you often want to like honor your sunk costs in this game. Like you've spent the time doing that, so now like one of your best chances of winning is that paying off. So, you know, you wanna play to that as best you can.
Yeah, for sure. Like usually the decision that gives you the best chance of winning is not the same as the decision that will give you like the fastest average time from where you're at. Like you want to double down on the choices you made. He's lining up for the hook shots right here. You don't actually have to be that precise with this. I think as long as like a single pixel of link overlaps with that block, it should work. Oh, yeah. So one thing I forgot to mention. He entered the Dark World from the lower portal. So if he has any aspiration of going to Turtle Rock soon, you really should not enter that portal if you don't have the mirror, because you can't actually enter Turtle Rock from the Dark Worlds if you don't have the mirror, and you're entering from that lower portal. Like, you have no choice but to save quit the game and go back to the light world so you can enter from the top portal. So luckily for him, he found the mirror, so if he wants to go into Turtle Rock, he can use the mirror and do it that way. And
yeah, there's the ice rod too, so it turns out we do want to go into Turtle Rock.
Yep, so finding that mirror and Super Bunny actually build him out pretty hard. Because we totally could have had a situation where that ice rod was where it was, but then the mirror like is in Turtle Rock, for example. Well, then you gotta save quit the game and climb up the whole mountain again. And here there's another situation from earlier in the seed that's kind of back to bite him, which is he never actually looked at the island item here.
Yeah. He just spent a couple seconds peeking at it earlier, rather than the, I don't know, like 20 to 30 seconds maybe that it takes to go and grab it.
And unfortunately, this is not Quake locked. Quake was in Mire, Bennett Mire, which so far appears to have been, otherwise it did not pay off. If this was Quake, then at least you'd feel good about the Mire play because you knew it was required. But so now I think we're only looking for flippers.
Yeah, so we have at least successfully got to avoid the full clear of Ice Palace at this point.
Yep, that's true. It seemed like a pretty legit option earlier in the run, but as it turns out, that would have just made you do some extra checks because flippers are going to be promoted. And one little tip for routing Turtle Rock, if you have the mirror, usually it's best to go right first, do those roller checks, and then just mirror from there. And then on your second trip through this room, you can go left, check compass chest, and then go up here after that. That way you don't have to deal with running through the roller room. And if you are running through the roller room, don't forget you always have the cape you can use as well, just to make that really easy. Death and chomps, that's something that happens to everybody at every level. Never feel bad about that one. That room sucks.
It's so easy to see exactly what we just saw there. Take a hit from the poke in the previous room, then a hit from the chomps, and that's like almost all of your health gone, kind of no matter what. all the enemies in TR hit real hard.
This is one of those rooms where I feel like it's very beneficial just to learn the NMG strat. Like, I think in a lot of cases, if you're like very familiar with NMG, you might not realize there are faster strats or easier strats for rooms that are available in Rando. But that is one where, like, if you learn the NMG strat, you are set for life with the Chomps room.
Probably worth noting that in that previous room just there, the 3 pots at the top, the middle one has 5 arrows under it. To back up, you want to grab a pretty large amount of the time, and I especially would here with only 4 arrows in my pocket.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You might never find silvers. And at the moment, you have exactly enough arrows to do Mimics 1 in GT. Might have to rely on that finicky arrow drop in Mimics 2. You don't really want to put yourself in that situation if you can help it.
Yeah, and obviously if the big key ends up being behind ice armors, then it's even more of a problem.
I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think in most cases, just in general, slashing with the gold sword is going to do just as much damage as spins. There's exceptions to everything in Rando. But I think with those pokies, you can just slash them twice with gold sword to kill them. I might be wrong about that, though.
Yeah, no, that's correct.
So you got gold sword for basically everything in the game. Just slash it. Don't even worry about spin attacks.
Yeah, I believe a gold sword slash is the same damage as a tempered spin on everything apart from Moth, as we discussed earlier.
One little like micro gamble I like to do, if I'm exactly one item from Go mode, I like to just open Turtle Rock Big Chest here before even doing Mimic's Cave.
Yeah, a lot of people make that play for sure.
Like most of the time, of course, your Go mode is not going to be in Turtle Rock Big Chest. But it is so fast just to go open it, walk back out, do Mimics if you have to. And you'll save quite a bit of time if your Go mode is actually there. That said, I was watching this VOD with Space's commentary on it first time through. And I think maybe he's not super confident with Silverless Ganon. So with that in mind, it's perfectly fine. Just do Mimics first.
Oh yeah, for sure, to get the extra checks in.
For anyone out there, if you're getting into Rando, you haven't learned Silverless Ganon yet, go do yourself a favor. Go practice that. That is by far the most important tech in the game, I would say. There are so many seeds where you will not find silver arrows. Oh, speaking of silver arrows.
Yeah, there they are. This is not one of those seeds.
Yeah. But it has the potential to let you skip a Go mode item, like, forever, so... Yeah, taking the
Finally
safety door
taking
here.
yeah, exactly. A flying plate.
I will point out he did use the green potion to refill his magic. For the cape, for that last chest, there is one trick you could do if you're not comfortable with laser skips, which are, they're very difficult. I wouldn't recommend people learn them right away. But if you leave that safety door and come back in the dungeon, if you fall down a pit, you will respawn at the safety door with a bunch of iframes. So if that bottom chest is the only one you still need, you can just intentionally fall down a pit and then go walk to that chest, like without stopping, and you'll just walk through the lasers. So in this situation, that actually would have been pretty nice because that way you save yourself from using that green potion, and you'll just get the full magic refill in the room before Trinex. And then in case you need that green potion later, you'll have it.
Just slightly too slow on the slashes there, so didn't get the one cycle on that head. Nice final phase there.
And that is go mode.
There they are.
So all we got left is go mode swamp, go mode ice, GT.
Yes, the siege has been a bit rough up to this point, but we get to have actually quite a nice little ending here with go moding 2 of our crystal engines. We already got gold, sword, and silvers as well, so there's like very little reason to even be checking for safeties.
Yep. And a quick tip with mirroring after Turtle Rock, if you just don't move at all after you spawn out the exit, you'll be fine. You won't bonk.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, yeah, I say go moding 2 of our crystal engines. Of course, I meant 3. We just completely forgotten about desert this whole time.
Oh, right.
Just not been accessible until we've got the mirror.
Yeah, no sign of the book anywhere, so... that said, go moding this dungeon, you do still need a big
find
key.
the big key.
That is very easy to forget. So go mode routing for this dungeon, there's really not too much to be said about it. You kind of have to do... Well, most of the time you'll have to do everything anyway. You can skip big chest at least, and maybe in this situation you'll skip big key chest. And again, there is nothing left to fluff for, really. You got gold, you got silvers.
So what you want to do to get through that portal there is you want to pick up a bomb. You can't go through a portal while you're holding a bomb, or a scenario block would work there as well. You can just walk through the portal in that spot.
Yeah, I like the improv there. Nice key dash too. If you're not too familiar with key dashing, it's basically just a hug something, like hug up against it before you start dashing to a locked door. And you'll pretty much always be perfectly aligned so that you just dash through it without stopping.
aligning yourself with walls or like nudging on objects as you dash by towards the door. These all work to put you on what we call the grid.
So again, going back to the arrow situation, very tempting to kill Lanmo with silver arrows, since you might be able to get the one cycle. But now we're down to only one. And at the bare minimum, you're going to want 2 for GT. So there were a few arrow pots in Desert that would have been really helpful. Or just fighting Lanmo, you could just go for Fire Rod strats. You can get the one cycle just as consistently with that.
Yeah, this is another situation where sort of being conscious of what resources you have is important. Obviously, in this spot, when we've got half magic and a bunch of magic anyway, it would have been fine just to do a Fire Rod fight for Lanmos and preserve those arrows.
And there's still time to get arrows too. In Swamp and in Ice, but it is something you want to pay attention to. And yeah, capacity upgrade, that is an option. If you're doing Ice Palace last and you happen to remember by the time you're done with it, you need arrows for GT, you could mirror and then buy the arrow upgrade, but that's still going to be slower than just remembering where the arrow pots are. You don't need that many arrows, but you do need a few.
Yeah, it is true though. It's something that would almost never cross my mind. But yeah, in this spot, if you're doing Ice as your last crystal and you're leaving with 1 arrow, which might be the case here, then for sure the capacity upgrade seems good.
Successfully dodging the muscle memory of doing map chest. Well done.
Yeah, we've seen some pretty textbook go moding so far. Like just 0 unnecessary checks done so far as I'm aware, since we got into go mode.
Yep, so far so good. To answer your question in chat, are there arrow pots in GT before climb? It kind of depends on where you are in GT. There are arrow pots in the basement, but like depending on where you find the big key, you might not cross any of them.
Yeah, unless you're going to Ice Lamos, basically, you won't run across any. But there's a couple, yeah, between you can get between Rando room and the drop down.
Lining up for the diver down. It's good, good vertical placement on that block, but just a little bit too far to the left.
This looks fine. I think we're going in there. Yeah.
Yep. Maybe a little bit of confusion with the D-pad inputs there, but got the job done. And that,
there's
that
an arrow pot in that room as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. One of the ones on the right, I forget which one it is, but One thing you can do with Argus, if you happen to have Gold Sword, is you could kind of go for an easier version of the Zero Cycle strat. If you just hold out the sword and then press the hook shot to like hook shot a puff into your sword poke, that will kill them in one hit. So you can just kind of like hold the sword out and then hook shot over and over again.
Yeah, you need a decent rhythm on the hook shots, but it's definitely a thing that you can learn. It's a lot easier for sure than the Tempered Sword version of the Zero Cycle.
Yeah, it's a good gateway to learning that if you're ever interested in learning it down the line. The Tempered Sword Zero Cycle is definitely a high level strat that's not worth learning for a long time, but with gold it's pretty easy and it's worth trying.
This is actually another situation where I have no idea if mirroring and fluting is faster than the dash here or not to get from swamp to ice.
Yeah, I don't know either. I feel like this is probably better, but I don't know for a fact. I guess it's one screen transition from either direction anyway, right? So it's probably faster not to flute. Now we're coming up on the critical test of Ice Palace Go mode. Do you remember to hit the switch before Icebreaker? Or do you just do IPBJ route?
Yeah, this is
And
switching
you
to
did.
Icebreaker.
That is something that is super easy to forget. And when you do forget, it hurts. And very good Icebreaker. First try. Now here what you want to do is you want to lift up that gray rock and get the one key. That's the only key you need for this whole dungeon if you're routing it this way. So now you walk up to this door and it's like, oh crap, what do I do?
Yeah, luckily there's a bailout key in this chest.
Yeah. And using Bombos here for Cold Stare, it's a bit slower than just doing 8 fire rod shots. It doesn't really matter that much, but you know, if magic's not an issue, you have gold swords, it's gonna be an easy fight anyway. You might as well just spam fire rod, save a little bit of time. Very narrowly a bonk, or not a bonk, rather. This is another case where you can just mirror as soon as you exit without moving, you'll be fine. And this is why this is the worst screen in the game.
Yep.
If you do see the dead rocks are going to be in your way before they get frozen, you can, if you think to do it in time, you can quick swap to powder and try to powder them. But if you hit them and they turn to stone, there's really nothing better you can do. Like maybe, if depending on where it is, if you scroll off the screen, you can despawn them. In that situation, that wouldn't have really worked. Also come up on this screen and the previous screen as well, though they were a bit nicer here. Now the arrow issue is really starting to loom overhead. You kind of hope that the big key is going to be later, so you have a chance to get some of those arrow pots. Because one arrow is not going to do it.
So about hoping that big key's going to be later.
Yeah, of course. So if he had 2 arrows, he could maybe get away with this, because that's enough to get through Mimics 1. There is an arrow drop in Mimics 2. The issue is it often despawns because there's too many sprites on the screen.
Yeah, you've got to be a little bit careful about how you like move to that pot and pick it up to give yourself the best shot of actually getting the arrows out of it. Of course, the other thing you could do in this spot is mimic clip if that's a trick that you're aware of. I don't know if I'd expect necessarily anybody in the mental tournament to be able to mimic clip on demand.
Yep. And if you do learn Mimic Clip, that's not really why you should learn it. But if you happen to have that in your pocket, it can bail you out. It's definitely bailed me out in the past. So unfortunately, there's really nothing better to do than just start routing the left part of the basement here and just hope that you find some chests before you come to those pots.
Yeah, I don't actually remember if we found the shovel this seed. That's the other thing you can do is mirror and go outside the dungeon and start digging.
You can actually potion glitch the first Mimics room too, but that doesn't help you with the second one.
Oh, that's true, yeah, you
Fun
can.
fact.
Just make sure you fix the screen scroll before going through the door.
Oh yeah, otherwise you get banned. It's a major glitch. So really just very unlucky with the GT situation here. Like, there's bound to be arrows in some chest somewhere, right? But of course, the big key is super early. You're desperately trying to find arrows, they just don't show up. So, like, most of the time, if you don't have arrows when you get to GT, like, you will probably just get bailed out anyway by something, but on the off chance that this kind of disaster scenario does happen, this is why you really want to pay attention to your arrow count before you get to GT in the first place.
Yeah, it's just a combination here of the early big key and the chest just not returning anything. There we go.
So I think trying to be delicate with this room, not to take too much damage, but honestly, you'll usually just end up taking even more damage if you try to be careful about it. Like, if you just hit that switch as soon as you enter the room and then just like run as fast as you can over to the switch on the left, you'll probably take less damage or equal damage than if you're trying to be careful and you don't know exactly how to do it right. Like, it can be done in such a way that you stay heart neutral, but if you don't know exactly how to do it, you'll probably just get hurt by other things on accident anyway. Fun fact, one time I used a blue potion in that exact same room, except I used it on the frame I entered the door to that room.
Oh.
And got very confused when the flute menu showed up.
Yeah, that is also a major glitch.
So good call using it in the middle of the room instead of in the door.
Yeah,
Bad things happen.
I've definitely accidentally mirror wrapped on the overworld before as well, trying to mirror the same frame I transitioned. Turns out this game has a lot of glitches in it.
Okay, now the enemies drop arrows.
Yeah, for real, why couldn't we have just gotten that 10 arrows from the first stealth host in the basement that we killed? Would have saved like 2 minutes.
Yeah, or any of the ones in the DM room.
Oh right, yeah, we killed the whole lot in DM room as well. Yeah, they were in the... This stealth host is really not playing along. There we go.
Yeah, usually the best way to handle that room is just have the fire rod equipped as soon as you walk in the door. And just like shoot it straight down or move a little bit left. Shoot it straight down, and the splash damage most of the time will just kill that stealth host. There are like funky reasons why sometimes it won't, but most of the time it should just kill stealth host instantly. You won't have to worry about it. Once those icy rooms go wrong, they can kind of spiral out of control sometimes. And this is another room where definitely worth it to learn the traditional Samaria one cycle kill here. Or if you're not comfortable with it, honestly, just use Ether or Quake. Those are not too much slower and they're very easy. And once again, recognizing there's really nothing left to find that would help in any meaningful way. These chests take like a couple seconds to open, but even those couple seconds aren't worth it on average.
Yep, there's that magic pot there that you want to grab that almost every time. No real reason not to. It's pretty quick, and having full magic for the Ganon fight is generally just a good thing. Oh no, we're quickswapping the long way. The thing you'll get more familiar with as you use quickswap more. Just like having a vague sense of what items are near each other for like common combinations.
Yep. And for that room specifically too, you always want to make sure you have that hookshot equipped before Moldorm starts dying, because you won't be able to quick swap until the explosion ends. You'll just be standing there waiting painfully. Unfortunately, one of those doubles earlier was actually a single, I think. It's kind of unlucky with the timing on that.
Yeah, if you get two hits too close together, it just won't count as two different hits. I think that's like the second one overrides the first one or something, but yeah, either way, it's only one.
So here, this is a fairly obscure fairy, I think. I don't think a lot of people realize that that's there. If you're not comfortable with the Ganon fight, there's no shame in going to grab that first.
Yeah, doing this fight with half magic, especially if you have silvers, which means you don't need to worry too much about the last phase. You can just use the cape pretty liberally. It is very safe to do so.
Also good to know, if you have Gold Sword, it's 6 hits for the first 2 phases, which is really not that much. So you can just hit him 6 times, get out of the way if you have the cape and you want to use it. And like you said, I mean, there's a lot of magic available, but let's say you didn't have so much magic, you can just go grab the wall until the phase transitions.
Yeah, okay, so what you want to do in that spot is stand a little bit away from the torch until Ganon shoots the fire bat, and then you can move towards it safely to hit the torch clutch.
Yep, easy mistake to make.
yeah, Ganon will always shoot the fire back towards where you're standing at the time, so yeah, you can just bait it elsewhere.
I know I definitely struggled with the same issue when I was first learning to fight, because, you know, when you're so hyper-focused on torch glitch, you're like, okay, I gotta get to the torch as fast as I possibly can, because I don't want to miss it. But really, you don't want to get there as fast as you can, because of, like you just said, you might just bait the fire bat onto yourself. So just wait a little bit, and then once the fire bat is launched in some other direction, then go in for a torch glitch. You know, that said, I mean, he does have silvers, so torch glitch isn't even really that necessary here.
Yeah, that's true, actually. A lot of players also just don't go for the torch glitch in the silvers fight specifically. Because like relighting both torches is not a big hassle when you've only got to do it like a couple of times.
Yeah, unfortunately, taking a little bit of extra time to go get potions. But, you know, if you're not too comfortable with the fight, then, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. I will say, if you're gonna go buy potions, you might as well just go buy blues. It's not like you're gonna be spending the extra 974 rupees after the game's over, so... You know, if you take some damage, end up having to use the potion anyway, it'll cover your health too. Then another thing regarding flying to Ganon that I think a lot of people don't realize is those bats in Phase 4, they will knock you in the direction opposite to the direction you're trying to move. If you just let go of the D-pad, you actually will not move when the bat hits you. So if you recognize that you're about to get hit, just let go. Or if you think to do it in time, just like start running toward the hole. The bat will actually save you.
Yeah, it's a little. It's a really hard thing to like train your muscle memory to do that.
Right, because I mean, you're not trying to be in that situation in the first place. Always just barely.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and also just like the instinctive thing that you're going to do there when you know, when the bat comes at you and you kind of panic is to hold away from the pit because that's the direction you want to go.
And again, with the silvers, like, you don't really need Torch Glitch, especially now that he's got those green potions. You got plenty of magic to use Fire Rod. You don't need Torch Glitch to do Silver's kill. So might as well play it safe, but I mean, still good practice to get Torch Glitch in there, especially if you're still learning the Silverless strats.
Yeah, like if you're not that comfortable with Silver's Ganon, then in that situation you absolutely 100% want to hit Torch Glitch because you're going to probably have to have some extra cycles anyway to get through the fight, and you know then you are in danger of running out of magic if you've not got Torch Glitch.
I'm a little low on health here.
Yeah, Ganon just does a ton of contact damage at all times. Like even with Blue Mail here, it's still 6 hearts of damage on contact with Ganon. We see a 5-hour spam torch in the end. Alright, nice double there. One more here and then one more torchlight.
I'm just barely missing that slash.
Alright, GG.
There we have it. So once again, huge shout out to Spaces for submitting this. I think it takes a lot of bravery to allow people to critique your play in a public forum like this. So shout out to you. Hope you and anyone else watching this learned a few things with our commentary. I think this was a pretty instructive seed for a lot of reasons, like going back all the way to the opening. You know, what to do if you're lacking bombs, you know, mid-game routing, when should you be save quitting, making sure you're not fragmenting your route. I think those are probably the biggest takeaways from the seed.
Yeah, for sure. This was quite a rough seed, which I think is probably more helpful for learning like this. Like it's, you know, if you just get a jet seed, it's just so easy for us to sit here and say, oh yeah, go to the next full clearable crystal dungeon. You know, it's all easy, but it's much easier to actually, you know, talk about decisions when there's a seed like this.
Yep, we could definitely see the consequences of a lot of those decisions from earlier on, which I think is very instructive. So once again, thank you for submitting. As it turned out, there was a